Huge thank you to channel member Matt L. Hi England fans, welcome to tier ranking all of those England players that played in the Champions Trophy. It's not going to go well, is it? Let's be honest. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. Like the video because that's really helpful. And if you wouldn't mind just commenting and let me know who you think is going to actually make this ODI team the next time England play white ball cricket, that would be really cool. And because I'm interested, because I think the team's kind of, well, I think it's a bit crap. Anyway, I've got the tier list set up. I've got the players that have been used and I've made some little notes about them. I've got some stats and I've got a star column at the top and a bin right at the bottom. And we're going to start at the top of the order, as we should do, I think. I think it's only fair that we start with the opening batters, and we're going to start with Phil Salt. I'll just give you the numbers quickly for Phil Salt. In 3 games, he scored a massive 30 runs with a high score of 12. And even I can work out the average here. It's 10 for Phil Salt. Yeah, I don't think he'll need to be told that that's not a great return from the Champions Trophy, is it? But he's such an exciting cricketer, Phil Salt, and that's where I think it's a little bit frustrating because I can understand the logic behind the selection of him at the top of the order because he's so good at T20 cricket. He walks out there, he whacks the first ball to the boundary. He was in the T20 International Team of the Year by the ICC last year, and it just hasn't worked, has it? Yeah. An average of 10 and a high score of 12 isn't really going to do it for you, unfortunately. But you're not going to need an idiot on YouTube to tell you that. You're well going to know that. So, unfortunately for Phil Salt, you're the first player that goes in the bin on this tier list. Ben Duckett, better. Much better by Ben Duckett. And there were some standouts, to be fair. Ben Duckett, as it stands, is actually the leading run scorer in the Champions Trophy. He scored 227 runs with a high score of 165. Sorry, that game came against Australia in the opening game. He's averaged 75. Obviously, the 165 against Australia, according to JonnoGibbs, was rubbish because it was too slow, and that's what cost England that game. Wasn't the fact that the only other bloke to score any runs was Joe Root, but it was because it was too slow. 165 or 140 balls for reference. He's gone past 1,000 runs in 21 ODI innings, which is pretty quick for England. It's up there with the quickest. And he was a bit of a bright point, really, for England's Champions Trophy. And I think for that, I'm going to give him a gold star. Next, Jamie Smith. And if you thought Phil Salt's tournament was bad, yeah, Jamie Smith wasn't much better. He did have a high score by 3 runs. His high score was 15, but he scored 24 runs in 8 innings. The management made a big deal of Jamie Smith at 3 in the Champions Trophy, saying that it was a free hit for the Surrey wicketkeeper batter. Yeah, I mean, he just didn't hit anything, did he, really, by the looks of it? I'm sure he's still got a fantastic future ahead of him, and I'm sure he will be playing multiple formats for England going forward. But based on these 3 games, that has absolutely stunk Jamie Smith. So despite the fact that you're the only person wearing... Oh, no, not the only person. Despite the fact you're wearing a long-sleeve shirt, which obviously is better, you are going in the bin. Joe Root, just 2 runs behind Ben Duckett. Obviously, he's not going to gain on Ben Duckett because England are already on their flight home. 225 runs, a high score of 120, which came against Afghanistan, and an average of 75. I think the big question about Joe Root is, well, firstly, should he have done more to have won that game against Afghanistan? Already scored 120. I think other people should be looking at themselves before we start looking at Joe Root. But should he have opened the batting? I saw this from David Lloyd the other day when he was talking about Tendulkar in ODI cricket, saying about the fact that India played their best batter at the top of the order and gave him the most amount of time to score the runs. Maybe Joe Root at the top would have been better than at number 4. But actually for him, had a pretty good tournament, didn't he? So I'm going to go for A for Joe Root. He averaged 75 in 3 matches. Quite weird, actually, with England, isn't it? Apart from today, when they got absolutely demolished by South Africa. The first 2 games, they've scored well over 300. And they just haven't been able to defend it. But we'll talk about bowlers in a minute. Harry Brook, the future. The guy that could be the next England captain, apparently, if you believe it. But anyway, he had a good tournament because he scored 47 runs, a high score of 25, and an average of 15. Yeah. I think you're starting to figure out to see where the problem might be in this team. Yeah, apparently he could be the next captain. Certainly been spoken about now, the fact that Josh Buttler has stood down, but he looks like he struggles, doesn't he, when the ball actually kind of does a little bit. Yeah, the other thing as well with Harry Brook is with the way that England schedule their tours and their games and things, how much white ball ODI cricket are these blokes going to play that are also playing Test cricket? I don't know. Anyway, yes, Harry Brook, if I can find him, I can. He's going in the bin as well. Unlucky. Right. Captain, Jos Buttler. 82 runs, a high score of 38 and an average of 27. He didn't keep in the tournament because that decision was made by the management. I don't really know why. Why did we go with so many wicket keepers? God only knows. Anyway, he's stepped down, isn't he? That the Champions Trophy has killed Jos Buttler's captaincy reign over England. Geez, I don't know. What's the future of Jos Buttler? Does he play ODI cricket anymore for England now that he's not captain? We don't play ODI cricket until May. That's against the West Indies. He'll have been over in the IPL by then. Could he be a T20 only player that just plays franchise cricket? And then in 2 years' time, if they're still kicking about and we need a wicketkeeper, could he come back out of retirement? I don't know. A very uncertain future, I think, for Jos Buttler and the future of ODI cricket. Anyway, he's here, and I'm going to put him in C because I don't quite think I can't put him in the same category as a bloke who scored 24 runs and a bloke who scored 82. They're both bad, but one's worse than the other one. Liam Livingstone, the bloke who had the winning runs hit off his bowling by South Africa, just to confirm the fact that England are absolute horse shit in the Champions Trophy. 33 runs at an average of 11 with a high score of 14 and 3 wickets. There was a glimmer of hope, I think, for Liam Livingstone in the summer when he found himself up the order. I think he might have been captain as well for a little bit. And it did kind of work. But back in the Champions Trophy, he's back at 7, acting as that genuine all-round cricketer, which he is, but I think at 7, it's really tough. In white ball cricket, you've got to be such a selfless cricketer to be down there at number 7. And I think that kind of makes you realise just how good Moeen was as an option. I'm sure that probably bait a few people into telling me that he was shit as well. But anyway, yeah, he's another one that's been mentioned for the captaincy. I would imagine he is someone that will definitely be part of a white ball side going forward for England, whether it's T20, whether it's ODI, I'm not sure. But if he did become captain and he pushed himself back up the order, do we see the Liam Livingstone that actually went quite well? I don't know, maybe. But based on this tournament, unfortunately, Liam Livingstone, I'm putting you in the bin as well. Right, who's next? Jamie Overton. Jamie Overton, 43 runs, an average of 21 and 1 for 72 from 2 matches. I don't think he was ever expected to play in the Champions Trophy. He came in with Bryden Carse's injury. There's another bonus for the Champions Trophy is England's fast bowling stocks have been decimated again. But he came in for Carse after the first game. He adds a pretty kind of similar and unimpressive one-dimensional aspect to England's seam attack. It's all right arm over and it's all pretty quick. And he's a bit of a lower order whacker in T20 cricket, and maybe in some of the situations he found him in, needed a little bit more now. So I put him in at C with Jos Buttler because it's not terrible, is it? And I don't think he was really meant to be out there. So yeah, you can kind of see the way this tier list is shaping up. It's very bottom heavy. Bryden Carse. 1 for 69 and 8 runs from the game that he played against Australia. And I don't really think I can spend too much time talking about Bryden Carse because he only played 1 game. But all it is another injury for an England fast bowler. So, I mean, the injury's technically not his fault, but he's going down the bottom with Jos Buttler and Jamie Overton. So they've got plenty of company down there, haven't they? Jofra. Jofra's back. He's bowling, he's scoring runs, and that's another bright spark for this England Champions Trophy. He scored 60 runs at an average of 30, took 5 wickets for a total of 162 runs and a best of 3 for 64. And all I can say here in my notes is the fact that it is so good seeing him back bowling quick, which is great. I've no idea what the future looks like. I don't know what his injury record's going to be like going forward, but the fact he's playing and the fact it's going well is fantastic. So for that, I've put Jofra up with Joe Root in A. Literally nobody in the middle. No one has just middled out here. You've either done well or you've stunk the house out. Mark Wood. Right, he's injured again. That's good, isn't it? He picked up 1 wicket for 125 runs in 2 matches. I think it's his knee that's knackered this time. Yeah, a 1 wicket in 2 matches when England have scored over 300 and we weren't able to defend it. It's not good enough, is it, at the end of the day? So as much as I love him and his personality and his quirks, he's in the bin. Next, Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid. What's Adil Rashid done in the tournament? He's the point of difference in this bowling lineup. The bit that makes the opposition quiver in their boots. He picked up 2 wickets for 107 runs in 3 matches with a best of 1 for 47. But he has got 11 first-class hundreds and he hits the ball in some interesting places. You might have heard that before somewhere. Baseline stats don't look brilliant, do they? But I think he probably bowled better than what the stats suggest. I think oppositions would have known that he was the only serious option that England had for the Champions Trophy as a bowler. And with that in mind, probably is a little bit higher up from the old Binnasium where a few of the other blokes are. Actually, in those 2 games that England did score over 300 and had that to defend, we know that 300 at 6 and over, it gets you to 50 overs and the basic maths. But Adil Rashid managed to go for the tournament at less than 5.3. So I think that kind of shows the fact that although he didn't take the wickets, he was still effective at what he did. And maybe because of the way that England lined up with the bowlers, they respected Adil Rashid slightly more than what they would have done if he'd have had another quality spinner or maybe a left arm seamer or something like that. So for Adil Rashid, going straight down the middle, it's going in B. Finally, Saqib Mahmood, 5 overs, none for 30 against South Africa, came into the tournament to replace Mark Wood with his injury. Not really much you can say about Saqib Mahmood, is there? So again, I mean, none for 30 or 5 is still 6 and over, and it's not really good enough, is it? So I'm putting you down the bottom in C with Bryden Cast, Jamie Overton, Jos Buttler. Anyway, there you go. There's my rankings for England's performance, dismal performance in the Champions Trophy. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Love to hear your thoughts about it, and I'd love to hear who you think is going to be playing ODI cricket next for England when they next take the field in May against the West Indies.